Welcome. Here is a rundown of war in Ukraine. U.S. intelligence expects slower pace of Ukraine war to continue. The slowed pace of fighting in Ukraine is set to continue over the next several months, and the United States sees no evidence that Ukraine's will to resist Russia has diminished, despite Moscow's crippling attacks on the Ukrainian power grid, a senior U.S. intelligence official said. Avril Haines, director of national intelligence in the Biden administration, also said on Saturday that she believed Russian President Vladimir Putin had been surprised that his military had not achieved more in its war on Ukraine. "We're seeing a kind of a reduced tempo already of the conflict, and we expect that's likely to be what we see in the coming months," Haines told the annual Reagan National Defense Forum in California. The Ukrainian and Russian militaries will attempt to refit and resupply to prepare for counteroffensives after the winter, but there was a question as to whether the Kremlin could achieve that objective, she said. "We actually have a fair amount of skepticism as to whether or not the Russians will be in fact prepared to do that. I think more optimistically for the Ukrainians in that time frame," she said. Putin is beginning to realize the challenges his military is faced with, Haines said. Global arms sales rise for seventh year despite supply chain issues. Sales of arms and military services by the world's 100 biggest defense companies rose 1.9% to $592 billion in 2021 despite supply chain issues that held up shipments of critical components, according to new data from the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, SIPRI. The increase, accelerating from 1.1% in 2019 to 2020, marked the seventh consecutive year of rising global arms sales, SIPRI said in its arms industry database released Monday. SIPRI said supply chain issues continued to hold back trade in 2021 and were likely to get worse as a result of the Ukraine war. Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022 was also increasing supply chain challenges for arms companies around the world, the SIPRI report said. For Western countries, it noted that Russia was a significant supplier of the raw materials used in arms production. This could hamper ongoing efforts in the United States and Europe to strengthen their armed forces and to replenish their stockpiles after sending billions of dollars worth of ammunition and other equipment to Ukraine, it said. And the worry is Russia, UN delays Myanmar representation decision. The United Nations has delayed a decision on who should represent Myanmar amid concern that Russia, which has become increasingly close to Myanmar's coup leaders, could sabotage efforts to reach an international consensus on the crisis-torn country. The UN's Credentials Committee, composed of 9 UN member states, including China, Russia, and the United States, started meeting on November 29. Under consideration is who should represent Myanmar, sitting UN Ambassador Kyo Mo-tan, appointed by the elected government of leader Aung San Suu Kyi, or a nominee of the generals who staged the coup that overthrew her government in February 2021. The US, China and Russia would probably prefer not to have a public spat over Myanmar's representation, said veteran diplomat and former Dutch ambassador to Myanmar Letitia van den Assem. Both Beijing and Moscow have publicly backed senior General Min Aung Hlaing's pariah regime, even as countries in Southeast Asia toughened up their previously lukewarm pushback against the military.